I never thought my own mother would be the one to destroy my family. My name is Claire, and 9 months ago, I was the happiest woman alive. I was 32, married to the love of my life, David, and I was 8 months pregnant with our first child, a little girl we had already named Lily. My mother, Margaret, had always been difficult, controlling, demanding. But I never imagined she was capable of what she did. It happened at my baby shower. My best friend Jessica had organized everything at a beautiful garden venue downtown. The sun was shining. There were pink balloons everywhere, and the cake was a masterpiece. 3 tiers of vanilla and strawberry, decorated with tiny fondant roses. I was standing near the gift table talking to my aunt when I saw my mother walking toward me with something in her hand. She was holding the cake knife. At first, I thought she was going to cut the cake early. She had a habit of taking over events that weren't hers. But then I saw her face. Her eyes were wild, her jaw clenched tight, and she was walking directly at me with that sharp silver blade raised slightly in front of her. "Mom?" I said, stepping back. "What are you doing?" The room went silent. All 30 guests stopped talking at once. I could hear the wind rustling through the trees outside. Margaret stopped 2 feet away from me. She looked at my pregnant belly, then up at my face. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was terrifyingly steady. "You don't deserve this," she said. "You don't deserve any of this." "Mom, put the knife down," I whispered. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Please." "I was supposed to be the mother again," she said, and her voice cracked. "I was supposed to have another chance. David was supposed to be mine." The room gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What?" I breathed. "You stole him from me," she hissed, stepping closer. The knife was inches from my stomach now. "I met him first. At the coffee shop. I was the one he smiled at. I was the one he talked to. And then you walked in, my perfect little daughter, and you took him like you take everything." I was frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. This was my mother, the woman who had raised me, the woman who had bandaged my knees and tucked me in at night. And she was threatening my unborn child with a cake knife because she believed I had stolen my own husband from her. "Margaret, stop!" My father, Robert, shouted from across the room. He started running toward us. "Don't come near me!" she screamed, swinging the knife in his direction. He froze. "None of you understand. I gave up everything for this family. I gave up my youth, my dreams, my life. And what do I get? A daughter who takes the only man I've loved in 20 years. David pushed through the crowd, his face white with terror. "Margaret, please. I never even knew you felt that way. I love Claire. I've always loved Claire." "Liar!" she shrieked. "You looked at me. You smiled at me. You chose her because she's younger, because she's my wife," David shouted. "Because I fell in love with her. There was never anyone else." Margaret's face twisted into something I didn't recognize. She turned back to me, and for a split second, I saw genuine madness in her eyes. Not anger, not jealousy. Something broken and dark and irreparable. "Then neither of you gets to be happy," she whispered. She lunged. I don't remember the exact moment. I remember Jessica screaming. I remember David tackling my mother to the ground. I remember the knife clattering against the tile floor. I remember falling, my hands clutching my belly, feeling wetness between my legs and praying it wasn't blood. It wasn't. My water had broken. 3 weeks early. The ambulance came. The police came. My mother was arrested, screaming that I had ruined her life, that I was a thief, that Lily should have been hers. I was taken to the hospital, where I delivered my daughter after 14 terrifying hours. Lily was small, but perfect, and when they placed her in my arms, I wept for 3 reasons: joy, relief, and the crushing grief of knowing my mother would never hold her. Margaret was charged with assault with a deadly weapon and making terrorist threats. She was denied bail. My father filed for divorce immediately. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. For the first 3 months after Lily's birth, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that knife. I heard my mother's voice. I felt the phantom cold of steel near my stomach. David held me every night, whispering that we were safe, that she was locked away, that she could never hurt us again. But I knew my mother. Margaret didn't give up. Margaret didn't lose. The first strange thing happened 4 months after the incident. I was at the pediatrician's office with Lily for her checkup. The waiting room was full of mothers and crying babies. I was filling out paperwork when the receptionist called my name. "Mrs. Bennett, there's a phone call for you." I frowned. "Who is it?" "She says she's your mother's attorney." My blood ran cold. I took the phone with trembling hands. "Hello? Mrs. Bennett, this is Patricia Holbrook. I'm representing Margaret Walsh in her upcoming trial. I'd like to schedule a time to discuss a potential plea agreement." "I have nothing to say to you," I said, my voice tight. "My mother tried to kill me and my daughter. She belongs in prison." "Mrs. Bennett, I understand your feelings, but I think you should know, your mother has been diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder and dissociative episodes. She's been receiving treatment at the county facility, and her doctors believe her actions were influenced by an untreated mental health crisis." "She knew exactly what she was doing," I snapped. "She planned it. She waited until my baby shower. She brought a knife." "The knife was already at the venue," Patricia said calmly. "It was part of the cake service. She didn't bring it with her." "That doesn't change anything." "No, it doesn't. But it might change the sentence. With proper treatment and your testimony regarding her mental state, the prosecution might consider a reduced charge. She could be out in 3 to 5 years instead of 15. I hung up. That night, I told David about the call. He was furious. "She's trying to manipulate you again. Don't let her, Claire. She doesn't get to use mental illness as an excuse for what she did." "I know," I said. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. My mother had always been volatile, yes. But had she really been sick all along? Had I missed the signs? Had my father? The second strange thing happened 2 weeks later. I was grocery shopping at the supermarket near our apartment. Lily was in her carrier, sleeping peacefully. I was in the cereal aisle, reaching for a box of oatmeal, when I felt someone watching me. I turned around. The aisle was empty except for an elderly woman examining soup cans at the far end. I shook my head, telling myself I was paranoid, and turned back to the shelf. That's when I saw it. Tucked between 2 cereal boxes was a small envelope with my name written on it in my mother's handwriting. I dropped the oatmeal. My hands shook so badly I could barely open the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of me, taken from outside my apartment window. I was standing in the nursery, holding Lily, looking down at her with a smile. The photo was taken at night. The timestamp on the corner read 2:47 a.m. The night before, I had woken up at 2:30 a.m. to feed Lily. I had stood by the window, rocking her back to sleep. Someone had been watching. Someone had been close enough to take a clear photograph through the glass. My mother was in jail. She couldn't have taken this. But someone had. Someone who knew her. Someone who was working for her. I called the police. They took the photograph and the envelope. They reviewed the store's security footage but found nothing suspicious. The camera in the cereal aisle had been malfunctioning that day. The detective assigned to the case, a tired-looking man named Detective Morrison, told me there wasn't much they could do without more evidence. "Mrs. Bennett, your mother is incarcerated. She has no internet access, no phone privileges except legal calls. It's possible this is a coincidence." "My name on an envelope in a cereal box is not a coincidence," I said, my voice rising. "Someone is stalking me, someone connected to my mother." He promised to look into it. I knew he wouldn't. The third strange thing was the worst. It was a Tuesday morning. David had left for work. Lily was napping in her crib. I was in the kitchen, washing bottles, when I heard a sound from the nursery. A lullaby. It was faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. "You are my sunshine." My mother used to sing it to me when I was little. I hadn't heard it in years. I ran to the nursery, my heart in my throat. Lily was still asleep in her crib. The mobile above her head was motionless. The room was empty. But on the changing table, there was a gift. It was a small pink box, tied with a white ribbon. I didn't touch it. I called 911 and backed out of the room, scooping Lily up and holding her so tight she whimpered. The police came. They opened the box. Inside was a handmade baby blanket, crocheted in pink and white. There was a card attached. For my Lily. Grandma loves you. I'll see you soon. The handwriting was my mother's, but she was in jail. She had been in jail for 5 months. Detective Morrison looked at the blanket, then at me. Mrs. Bennett, is there anyone else who might have done this? A friend? A relative? No one calls her Lily except me and David, I said, my voice hollow. No one knows about the lullaby except my mother. We'll check with the jail, he said. But I have to be honest with you. If your mother is arranging this from inside, she's being very careful. We need more to work with. That night, I couldn't stay in the apartment. David and I packed bags and went to a hotel. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the parking lot, waiting for someone to appear. No one did. The next morning, I called Patricia Holbrook. I need to see my mother, I said. Mrs. Bennett, I don't think that's advisable. I don't care what you think. I need to look her in the eyes and ask her what she's doing. I need to know if she's behind this. Patricia was silent for a long moment. She's at the county women's facility. I can arrange a supervised visit. But Claire, be careful. Your mother is persuasive. I knew that better than anyone. The visiting room at the county jail was cold and smelled of industrial cleaner. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my hands clasped in my lap, my heart racing. I hadn't seen my mother since the baby shower. I didn't know what I would feel. Rage? Fear? Grief? When she walked in, escorted by a corrections officer, I felt nothing at first. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. Her hair, always perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit that swallowed her frame, but her eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, watching me like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Claire, she said, sitting down across from me. Her voice was soft, almost tender. My baby. You came. Don't call me that, I said. I'm not your baby. Lily is my baby. And you tried to kill her. Margaret's face didn't change. I wasn't going to hurt her. I was going to hurt you. There's a difference. Not to me. There isn't. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. You got my gifts. I felt ice in my veins. So it was you. Of course it was me. Did you think I'd just sit in here and let you forget me? Let you raise my granddaughter without me? How? I demanded. How are you doing this from in here? She smiled. It was a small, secretive smile that made my skin crawl. I have friends, Claire. I've always had friends. People who owe me favors. People who believe in me. Who? You'll find out eventually. Everyone finds out eventually. She reached across the table and I jerked back. Her hand hung in the air for a moment, then withdrew. I want you to know something, Claire. I don't hate you. I never hated you. I was angry. I was hurt. I felt like you had taken the one thing that was supposed to be mine. But I've had time to think, time to reflect. And I realize now that I was wrong. I stared at her. You're lying. No, I'm telling the truth. For the first time in years, I'm telling the truth. Her eyes glistened. I was jealous of you. Not because of David, because of your life, your hope, your future. I looked at you, pregnant and glowing and loved, and I saw everything I had lost. My youth, my dreams, my chance to be someone other than a wife and mother. I took that out on you, and I'm sorry. Sorry? I laughed, but it came out as a sob. You threatened my baby with a knife, Mom. You sent someone to stalk me. You broke into my home. Sorry doesn't fix that. I know. She looked down at her hands. That's why I'm telling you to be careful. What? The people helping me? They aren't doing it because they care about me. They're doing it because they hate you. Because they want something from you. And now that I've told them to stop, they might not listen. I felt the room tilt. What are you talking about? Who hates me? Margaret looked up, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. Your father, Claire. Robert isn't who you think he is. He never was. Dad? Dad filed for divorce. He wants nothing to do with you. Exactly. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. He filed for divorce because I found out what he was doing. The accounts he was hiding. The women he was seeing. The plans he was making. I was going to expose him, Claire. That's why I was so angry at the shower. Not because of David. Because I had just found out that your father had been stealing from our retirement fund for 10 years. Because I had proof he was involved in something illegal. And I knew that if I went to the police, he would destroy me. So I snapped. I lost control. And I made you the target of my rage because you were the only person I could still reach. I couldn't breathe. You're lying. Dad would never. Check the safety deposit box, she said urgently. Box 447 at First National. The key is in the lining of the blue purse I gave you for Christmas 3 years ago. Everything is there. Everything I found. Your father isn't a victim, Claire. He's a predator. And now that I'm in here, you're the only one left who knows enough to be dangerous to him. I don't know anything. But he thinks you do. She reached out again, and this time I didn't pull away. Her hand was cold and trembling. The gifts, the stocking, the photographs, Robert arranged all of it. He wanted you to think it was me. He wanted you to be so terrified of me that you'd never believe anything I said. He's been setting this up for months. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Just check the box. And then run, Claire. Run as far as you can. Because if Robert finds out you've been here, if he finds out I told you. The corrections officer stepped forward. Time's up. My mother was escorted out. She looked back at me once, her eyes wide and desperate, and mouthed 2 words. Be safe. I didn't go home. I drove to my father's house. He lived in the same suburban home where I had grown up, a tidy colonial with a manicured lawn and a flag by the door. He answered the door in his slippers, holding a cup of coffee, looking every bit the harmless retired accountant. Claire, what a surprise. Is everything okay? Can I come in? Of course, of course. He stepped aside and I walked into the house I had known since I was 5. The same furniture, the same smell of old books and lemon polish. It felt like a trap. We sat in the living room. My father looked at me with concern. You look pale, sweetheart. Is it the baby? Is it Margaret? I saw Mom today, I said, watching his face carefully. His expression didn't change. I wish you hadn't done that. She's not well, Claire. She'll say anything to manipulate you. She said some interesting things. About you. About hidden accounts. About illegal activities. For a fraction of a second, something flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by a sad, patient smile. Your mother has always been dramatic. You know that. When we were married, she accused me of affairs, embezzlement, even murder once. It's part of her illness. She told me to check safety deposit box 447 at First National. The smile vanished. She what? She said the key is in the lining of a purse she gave me. She said you were the one stalking me, that you arranged the gifts, the photographs, everything, that you wanted me to be afraid of her so I'd never believe her. My father set down his coffee cup. His hand was perfectly steady. Claire, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your mother is a dangerous woman. Not because she's violent, but because she's convincing. She can make you believe the sky is green and the grass is blue. She's been doing it to me for 35 years. Then what's in the box? I don't know. I've never heard of this box. But I can tell you this. If there is a box, she put something incriminating in it to frame me. She's been planning this for a long time. Why would she frame you? Because I was going to leave her. His voice was quiet. I met someone. A woman named Helen. I've been seeing her for 2 years. I was going to ask for a divorce. Your mother found out, and she threatened to ruin me. She said she'd tell everyone I was abusive, that I stole money, that I cheated. I told her I didn't care. I was ready to face the consequences. And then, the baby shower happened. And I realized she was capable of much worse than lies. I didn't know what to believe. My father had always been distant. Yes, cold, sometimes. But he had never been cruel. He had never raised his voice. He had never hit me or my mother. But Margaret had been volatile my entire life. She had thrown plates at walls during arguments. She had called me names when she was angry. She had once locked me out of the house for 3 hours because I had forgotten to take out the trash. Was it possible that my entire understanding of my family was wrong? I need to see the box, I said. My father was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll go with you. If there's something there, I want to know what it is. And if your mother is lying, I want you to see that too. We went to First National Bank the next morning. I had found the key exactly where my mother said it would be, tucked in the lining of the blue leather purse, sewn into a small hidden pocket I had never noticed before. The bank manager, a nervous young man named Kevin, led us to the vault. He inserted his master key, I inserted mine, and box 447 slid out of the wall. It was full of documents, bank statements, dozens of them. Transfers from accounts I didn't recognize to offshore locations. Emails printed on plain paper, detailing meetings and payments and codes. And photographs. So many photographs. My father with women who weren't my mother. My father meeting with men in dark suits in parking garages. My father standing outside a warehouse with a gun in his hand. And one photograph that made me drop the entire stack. It was a picture of David. My David. Shaking hands with one of the men in dark suits. The timestamp was from 2 years ago. Before Lily. Before the baby shower. Before everything. What is this? I whispered. My father didn't answer. He was staring at the photograph of David, his face gray. Dad, what is this? Why is David in this photo? I don't know, he said, but his voice was hollow. Claire, I swear to you, I don't know. I grabbed the documents and ran. I didn't stop running until I was in my car, speeding toward home, my hands shaking on the wheel. I called David. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. When I got to the apartment, David's car was in the driveway. I burst through the front door, screaming his name. He was in the nursery, holding Lily. He turned around, and his face was calm. Too calm. Claire, I was wondering when you'd get here. What is this? I held up the photograph. Why are you in this picture? Who are these men? What is going on? David looked at the photograph, then at me. He sighed. A long, tired sound. I was hoping you'd never find out, he said. I was hoping your mother would take the fall and we could just move on. Move on from what? From everything. He set Lily down in her crib and turned to face me. Your father wasn't the one stealing from the retirement accounts, Claire. I was. The room spun. What? I work for them. The men in the suits. They needed someone with access to corporate accounts. Someone who wouldn't be suspected. Your father was the accountant for Bennett Industries. I was the junior associate who did the actual transfers. We split the money. 50-50. For 3 years. No. I backed away. No. You're lying. I'm not. And your mother found out. She didn't know it was me at first. She thought it was your father. She was going to expose him. So I had to redirect her. Redirect her? I told her your father was having an affair. I planted the evidence. I made her believe he was the villain. And when she snapped at the baby shower, I knew my plan had worked. She'd be locked away. Your father would be discredited. And no one would ever look at me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. The man I loved. The father of my child. He had manipulated my mother into trying to kill me. The gifts, I whispered. The stalking. That was you too? No, that was your father. David's voice was flat. He knew I was involved. He was trying to scare you into staying away from me. He thought if you were terrified, you'd move in with him, and he could protect you from the truth. But you were too stubborn. You kept digging. Why? Tears were streaming down my face. Why would you do this? We were happy. We had Lily. We were never happy, Claire. We were convenient. I married you because of your father's position, because of the access he gave me. The baby was unexpected. But I was willing to make it work. I was willing to be a father. I was willing to keep the secret and live the lie. He took a step toward me. But now you know. And I can't let you tell anyone. You wouldn't hurt me. I don't want to. But I will if I have to. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun. I had never seen a real gun before. It looked wrong in his hand. Obscene. David, please. Lily is your daughter. I know. And I'm sorry. But I can't go to prison. I won't. He raised the gun. And then the front door burst open. Detective Morrison stormed in with 3 officers, weapons drawn. Freeze! Drop the weapon! David spun around, his eyes wild. How? Mrs. Bennett wore a wire to the bank, Morrison said, his gun steady on David's chest. We've been listening to everything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small recording device I had hidden there. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. You set me up, David whispered, looking at me with something that might have been admiration. You actually set me up. I learned from the best, I said, my voice breaking. I learned from you. David dropped the gun. The officers swarmed him, pushing him against the wall, cuffing his hands behind his back. He didn't resist. He just kept looking at me, his eyes empty. I did love you, he said as they let him out. In my own way. I did. I didn't answer. I went to Lily's crib and picked her up, holding her against my chest, feeling her heartbeat against mine. She was awake, her big eyes staring up at me, completely unaware of the monsters that had surrounded her. It's okay, I whispered. Mommy's here. Mommy will always be here. The trial took 8 months. David was convicted of embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 25 years. My father was charged as an accessory and received 5 years probation in exchange for testifying against the men in the suits. They were arrested in a federal sting operation 2 weeks later. My mother was released from jail 6 months after David's arrest. The prosecution dropped the assault charges in light of the new evidence, David's manipulation, her untreated mental health condition, and her cooperation in the investigation. She moved into a group home for women recovering from trauma and started therapy. I visit her every Sunday. We don't talk about the knife. We don't talk about David. We talk about Lily, who is now 10 months old and crawling everywhere. We talk about the weather, about books, about nothing important. Slowly, painfully, we are learning to be mother and daughter again. I sold the apartment. I moved to a small house across town with a big backyard and a fence. I changed my phone number. I changed my routines. I look over my shoulder less often now, but I still look. The cake knife from the baby shower is locked in a safe deposit box of my own. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe as a warning. Maybe because some things, no matter how terrible, are part of your story, and you can't throw away your story. Lily is walking now. She took her first steps last Tuesday, wobbling across the living room floor, her arms outstretched, laughing. I caught her before she fell, and she looked up at me with David's eyes and my smile, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the naive hope of before. Not the hope that believes everyone is good and everything will be fine. A harder hope. A hope that knows the world is full of knives and guns and lies, but chooses to keep walking anyway. A hope that says, I survived. I am still here. And that is enough. My mother called me last night. She sounded stronger than I've heard her in years. Claire, she said, I want to teach Lily the lullaby, the one I used to sing to you, if you'll let me. I thought about the knife. I thought about the fear. I thought about all the ways a mother can hurt a daughter, and all the ways a daughter can forgive. Okay, Mom, I said. We'll come on Sunday. When I hung up, Lily was standing by the coffee table holding herself up, watching me with those serious eyes. I picked her up and carried her to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know what, Lily? I whispered. The world is scary. People are scary. But you and me? We're scarier. We're still here. And we're not going anywhere. She babbled something that sounded like mama, and I laughed. And for the first time in 9 months, I didn't look over my shoulder. I just looked at my daughter, and the sunset, and the future that was somehow, impossibly, still bright. A mother is supposed to protect you from the monsters. Mine was the monster. But I learned something. Monsters can be defeated, even when they look like the people you love. Especially then. I still have nightmares. I probably always will. But in my dreams now, I'm not running. I'm standing. I'm holding Lily. I'm looking the monster in the eye and saying, not today, not ever again. And when I wake up, she's there, breathing, warm, alive, and that is everything.